Hello YouTube, Matt here, or Vectis 3D Models. This is an instruction video on how to put together an Isle of Wight Oldbury carriage kit. There are various kits available. This one is the later version. We do an early which has a slightly different floor with no details on the floor and individual step boards for the doors. This one, the later one, has the longer step board with underfloor detail. The other variation are the body shells. This one is a saloon, so first in the middle, saloon, and second on the ends. And also we have an all first, an all second, a brake second, and also a brake second, which was later converted into a luggage van. Those survived up until the 1930s, being reutilised as tool vans. Quite a few exist still in bodies only. Number 10 runs on the Isle of Wight Steam Railway and has been restored as part of that programme on Channel 4. Currently working on number 21, which is the all first carriage, which is continuing quite nicely. So this is the kit. This is the later version. Also, as I said, there was an earlier version which I'll be doing, which shows a slightly different floor with individual step boards down the side for the various doors, and there are quite a few of them to do. But just for ease and quickness, I'll be doing a later version, and plus it's more detailed. So the customer will need to buy the kits, but also need to buy detailed items like wheels, bearings, and also the etched W irons, which I've written in the description of the product, as well as wire, paint, primer, transfers, acetate sheet for the windows, but they're all sort of detail items which you can buy at later stages or when you need them. So in the kit you have the body shell, roof vents, NEM pockets, one floor, seats if it's first class. Some don't have seats because they were just benches, so just use some plastic card. Underfloor details, so brake cylinder, brake actuator, buffers, 4 springs because I think they're about 8 foot on this, and 4 axle boxes. This kit has been 3D printed in black and grey resin. Grey resin is ABS like, so it's a bit tougher. I also need to find some M2 machine screws and also nuts, which you can get from Eileen's Emporium. And these go together reasonably easy. There's a little bit of tidying up to do on the roof where it was printed upside down. It has the steps on the end, so you don't have to find some brass strip, so that's pretty straightforward. They're painted in teak. They have stained glass top light windows, and the roofs don't actually have a rain strip on, so they're all flat, just with the holes in for the roof vents. So with that said, let's get on with it and show you how to put one of these together. So the carriage chassis or floor, which is designed to take certain etches, so it's important you pay attention to this next part. So we have the floor itself, which needs to be cleaned up a little bit on the ends, and this is obviously for the brake gear as well, all that kind of thing. So it's the later type. The earlier ones you don't really have to pay any attention to a brake gear, etc., because they never had brakes. You'll need some etches. These are the ones that I'm using, and also the chassis is designed for. So these are Bill Bedford Models BWF 020 Great Western Coach W irons, which comes with the brake hangers, brake blocks, and also the W irons. Should be enough on here to do 3 carriages, and you fold them up, solder them, and they are also sprung. You don't have to make them sprung. If you don't want them sprung, just solder this part onto the back here. And also on the reverse, you can see there's a slight line or etched line across the axle bearing, where you can center the axle or the bearing itself. and you can solder them in place so they're not sprung at all. I would advise top hat bearings, this type with a shoulder. These will fit into the resin axle boxes which are printed for the spring and the axle. So that's all you'll need, apart from some wire, 0.45mm wire, and various other small sundry little bits and pieces. There is some sprung wire which comes with this etch, and that works quite well. So we'll move on to construction. As you can see, I've already built one in the background, and we'll move on to that and show you how that's done. So on the underframe or floor, the floors have been modified several times over the years. So this is a slightly different floor to the ones I made a couple of years ago. So what you'll need is to basically buy an etch for the underframe. I know some other people have made some Oldburys, but I think the way they've done it isn't as good as what it could be, and these are more detailed and also run a little bit better. So I've bought some Bill Bedford Great Western Coach W irons. I got these from Eileen's Emporium. They're pretty simple to put together, and also they are sprung, which make it a little bit more comfortable. And these are pretty simple to put together, and these chassis are designed so that when one's folded up like this, I haven't finished it off, there'll be some wire which goes between these points here, and also you can solder your brake blocks and hangers on here as well, on the slightly textured surface. So once you've soldered all that up and possibly chemically blackened them, these will just neatly sit in here, and you'll probably need to glue them in. There you go. That'll fit in eventually. So that's been folded up, and that fits straight in there like that without too much of a problem in your bearings and springs. And okay, so we'll start off with our blank floor. Now, as shown just previously, you need your etches all soldered up. So this is one lot of wheels soldered up. You can see here it's all been folded. The brakes have been soldered on. I still need to put some extra bits and pieces on here, but I can do that in situ. They are sprung, these ones, but you can solder the sprung parts or the axle holders, if you like, to the back of the W iron, which make it, well, won't make it spring, but at least it'll be fixed. You can fit your axle box. If I show you, so that's the axle box on. You can see there. You can glue it on with an all-purpose glue. This is resin. They are quite a nice tight fit, so they will move up and down. You can see there. Just make sure there's a little bit of clearance behind, so it will allow it to move if you are doing the sprung version. Once you've soldered all these together and they're working, you can see the other bearing on the other side there. You can then, if you pretend this is all painted, you can then fit these into the chassis, and I'll show you. It's quite simple because the openings are made so they just drop straight in. Now, to put them in place and to hold them in place, I would probably just use a smidgen of araldite along the bottom and along the sides just to hold it in place. But they will just drop in like so, and second set goes in there. You might need a little bit of a push. Push that in there. It is quite tight, as you can see. There you go. So that's all in. So that's your rolling chassis. Rolls nicely and freely. There you go. So that's all in there. As I say, you can detail up the brake hangers a bit more, and the brakes themselves. Any pockets, they will slot in between this row here, and they're designed to slot in that way, with the overhang facing outwards, So you just glue that in. A bit of super glue will be fine, and you can sort of see where I'm positioning that pocket, so it's sort of just in line, the front of it just in line with the back of the headstock here. So two of them will slot in like so. Now this has been designed to hold 12mm wheels, so if you change wheel size, obviously the NEM pocket height will be wrong. So stick to 12.6mm wheels, because that's what the railway is using, the smaller wagon type wheels. So that's all on. That's a running chassis plus the NEM pockets. The detail items in the middle, obviously you've got your brake actuator here. This will go in the square here. There's little locator corner bits in here, so that will just fit in there like so and locate. There you go. A little bit of super glue on the bottom of that, that'd be fine. There are holes in the ends here to put some brass wire. I think it's about 0.5 of a mil, so you can run that to the holes, one there, one in the other end here, if you want to do the simple way, that is. Unless you want to solder the whole brake gear rigging up as it should be, then it's quite complicated and involved. On the other side, you've got the air tank. You can detail again these up with some wire and bits and pieces if you wish. These are a little bit oversized, so in the next batch I'll be making them a little bit smaller. You can see I've filed off the end here and here just to allow it to fit in this section. So it's a little bit of an oversight by me, and they haven't shrunk as I expected them to when they were cured. So that's how that should be. If I swing this around the other side, so obviously we're missing springs. So these are the 8-foot springs. There's one upside down. Now again, I'm going to mention here, you'll need to file off this little raised section here, otherwise they won't, the wheels won't spring or the axle boxes won't move. I think I've got a couple which I have done. There you go. If this has been filed off the top so it's nice and flat with the front part. So these will glue in, a bit of super glue, nothing on the top, dab on the end or on the corner of this raised section as I knock everything off. It's always fun doing a dry fit, isn't it? So this end will go basically to the edge of the headstocks. I'll just swing that in underneath, just position it so it's where it needs to be, in the middle hopefully. There you go. As I say, it's very fiddly. There you go. So that is where it needs to sit. I'll just move it around so you can see. So it's up against the back of the headstock, or the front of the headstock, and this is then glued onto the raised end of that section. And again, I'll do the same again on this side. Again, been filed off. And just run it to the end. Bit of glue on one end, bit of glue on that end. Slide it in underneath the axle box. Then wait for the super glue or whatever glue you're using to dry. Make sure that's in line. There you go. And there you go. So you just need to repeat that for the other side. So that is basically the running chassis when you glue it together. If I tipped it upside down now, it would all fall apart. But you can see that is how it goes together. And of course, the ends will have the buffers. Paint these before you stick them on in satin black or matte black. Just cut them off with some cutters and then glue them into the holes on the ends of the headstocks. One there, and two on the other end as well. So that is basically the chassis ready to roll, ready to go. It takes a couple of hours to put together with a soldering iron. 25 watt will be fine. Some 145 degree solder, I can't quite remember off the top of my head. you need some super glue and a little bit of all-purpose glue, maybe some araldite if you wish, and you'll have a good running chassis. So there we go, and now we'll go on to the body shell. So the body shell, so again, same resin, ABS like resin. You have the body shell here. You have the two first class seats which go in the centre saloon. The second class end compartments will just have bench seats, and then also you have some roof vents plus one spare each. You have the chimneys or the oil lanterns, either one that you wish to use. The body shell is slightly challenging but not too difficult, it's pretty straightforward. You'll need a few tools, some sandpaper and patience and paint. So let's get into it. Okay, so body shell, you'll need a few tools and some sandpaper. I use wet and dry sandpaper for sanding the roof. You can see lots of little dimples and support material where the supports used to be. There are holes or some slight indentations on the step end of the roof. This is for handrails and bits and pieces if you want to add them. Unfortunately they've forgotten on the preservation ones at the moment. So as for the sandpaper, you can use varying grit, working your way to the highest grade. I need a file, needle file, and some cheap, possibly fake Zurons, which are flush cutters, and you'll need these for the windows. Now on these I have added my own supports in the longer windows as I was getting some sagging and drooping. This was due to either the exposure time or not just being supported, or suction as it pulls off build plate. So I've had to insert these sort of gel bars, if you like to call it, but you'll need these to cut away these supports. Do not use a knife because it chips away at the resin and you'll have massive holes and indentations on the inside, which you may think's not too bad, but then you have to fill it and then paint it. So use these, finish it off with a needle file, and they come out quite well. So you can see this side already. I've taken out top and the main window here, and also the door drop light as well. And these are just cut away very easily with these. You just get in the small gap between the two and just snip each end, and then snip the top end, and then they should just drop out. If they don't, just give them a little push and or go and recut them. I usually work from the inside out, it gives you a bit more room on the corners, and as I say, use the needle file to gently get rid of any excess on the surface, and that should be pretty much ready to paint. So prime it in white if you're doing teak, white, then the two colours, a base coat of the sort of cream, and then the weathered teak on top. On the back, the studs will be black. On this side you'll probably need to do a little bit of filling from where the supports have been on the end. The roof shouldn't be too bad once you've sanded it down. The holes are obviously for the roof vents, so I'll finish this off, clean it up, and then we can go on to the next step. Okay, join me back, and you can see all the supports on the windows have been cleaned, or cut and cleaned. Also on the doors you can see holes have been added, 0.45mm drill used to open up the holes for the grab handles. There's 3, so all done. The roof has been sanded, you can see that's a bit cleaner now. The holes for the roof vents or the oil pots have been opened up slightly and cleaned. On the end you can see the 4 holes if you want to add the handrail on top, which loops around and back down. And on the ends holes have been drilled, 2 on that side and 2 on that side for another grab handle. Be careful how far you go in, because you don't want to pop out the other side. You can probably just see there I've gone about 1 mil in, so not too far. So that's all done, ready, and you can prime it and then paint it, and then you can put some varnish over it and finish it off. We'll move on to the interior bits shortly. Right, let's bring you up to speed quickly and show you where we are. So the body shells had its brass wire grab handles added. These consist of the door, so the holes have been drilled out to 0.45 or 0.5. So that's been done. The end ones have been drilled in about 1 millimeter deep, not too deep or else you'll come out the side. So you can see on the back here a grab handle each side, and then the main one on the top. These have just been made with 0.45 millimeter brass wire, then bent with some pliers, then cut and shaped by hand. The top one was quite interesting and difficult. Our preservation ones done on the railway at the moment don't have this grab handle over the top, because we haven't got the guy to actually bend the rod into shape. So it's been bent with some pliers, curved around at the ends, curved over the top, and goes around at the other end and goes in the holes. 2 holes are drilled in the middle for supports, and then that gets soldered onto the top quite nicely. So that's where we are on that one. The chassis has all been finished. You can see underneath all the brass rods and all. This is the easy way of doing it rather than all the pulleys and gearing, etc. So this is the easy way of doing it, just to speed it up a little bit. So you can see all this has been fixed in place. 0.5 brass on the brake hangers. I think it's 0.6 or 0.8 going across on the actual actuator. So that's all finished. Etched brass hooks, which are from the old mainly trains range, MT356. These have just been cut, filed down on the ends and slid into position. The buffers are also fixed now, just a bit of sanding on the heads to get rid of the print marks, and they look very good. So that's all glued in place, and as you can see we have the 4 holes to attach the body shell or chassis to the body shell. So what you'll need is some of these. So these have been bought from Eileen's Emporium. Unfortunately I don't do any shorter ones than these, so these are 12mm long M2 cheese head screws and nuts. These should just sit in the little areas in the body shell at the back, and you can screw them tight and then glue them in place. I usually use Araldite just to stick these in place, a little bit of glue around the outside. Try and keep the thread clean and away from any glue. You'll probably need to cut off a little bit of this just so you can fit a seat over the top of it. I'll probably cut off about 5mm, something like that, because they only need to be about 5mm long to get through the resin. So we'll see. So that's what you'll need, those 2 from Eileen's Emporium. You may need to trim those down, and then we will have the body fixed to the chassis. So if you look through the window of the second class compartment, you can see a little sort of depression in there, a little slot to put the nut into. I've just done it on this side, you can see there. So that's all quite snug, fits nicely. Now what I usually do is put one of the brass screws through just to clamp it tight so it doesn't move. I will usually just spread a little bit of glue around the back and also just the front, just to keep it in place, and just smear a little bit just a tiny bit down the sides just to hold it in place, because you want that to stay in position and not move, otherwise it becomes a right pain. You'll have a bench seat which goes across here, which you'll just make out of plasticard. You can see the supports on the back wall possibly through there. So that's how you fix the body onto there. So I'll just need to glue that in place and tighten that up, and that should be good to go. 3 others to do, 1 on that side and 2 on the other side. You can see through the window just there. So waited for a couple of hours for the glue to dry on the nuts, which are now in place and stuck fast. I've now fixed the body shell to the chassis. You can see here the single bladed 4 screws. I still need to cut them down. Just secured in place with a flat bladed screwdriver. So that's all in place and solid, not going anywhere. You can see it lines up nicely with the back and the attachments to the chassis and body shell on the other end as well. So that's all good. So if I was painting this, which we'll have to pretend I am, next stage will be basically to prime it in white. Before you do that, make sure you decide on what roof vent you're using. So you can have the oil lamps, which are painted black, or the oil chimneys, which are painted white. So if you're going to use the chimney pots or chimneys or whatever, put them in position first, then prime it all in white. Mask up the roof. Paint this in teak, so PP995 I think it is for the base coat. And then I use weathered teak PP9 or P996, which is weathered teak from Precision Paints or Phoenix Paints. So you put that on. I usually put some varnish over the top. Then what I usually do is then line it out, so the sort of burnt red over the raised waistbands, and then gold on the brass bits on the door, so that's gold lining, and then add the transfers, then varnish it, and then you add the windows. Now the windows, you can use acetate sheet, which are clear. You can get that in 200 microns or 100 microns, and then what you do is put the stained glass behind it. So I'll show you a bit of that. I'll put some glazing in, and then I'll show you basically how to do one of these. Okay, so as we covered in the last bits, everything's been done. Handrails, end handrails, and handrails or grab handles on the doors. Also added the roof lamps or lanterns or whatever. You can choose from the lanterns or the chimneys. It's got 2 different types. Windows, if you put them in, use acetate sheet. Obviously this is now painted. So this is painted, been varnished, the transfers are on the outside if you squint hard enough, and the lining on the waistband beading is all been done in a burnt red colour. So the windows then go in after varnishing. I'm using 100 micron acetate clear sheets, which you can buy from any craft shop. You can also get 200 micron. It's usually overhead projector sheet, if you know what I mean. That can be cut into lengths. It's about 14 and a half mil deep, and then into long strips. These come as A4s, so you cut them into strips, and then cut them into the sections you need. I believe the Saloon ones are about 22 and a half mil wide. So you just cut them up into sheets, then you glue them in place with Model's craft glue or deluxe materials, or you can call it canopy glue. It's just PVA sort of based, a little bit tacky as well. I usually water it down a little bit, just to let it run slightly in to all the cracks and all the joins, so it gives it a good seal. So as you can see, hopefully, there you go, the windows are all stuck, which means I can then go on to putting the transfers on the inside of the windows for the stained glass. Okay, so window transfers, so this is really the last stage before you fit any internals like seating, etc. Generally they're protected by the acetate sheet, so you don't need to varnish them, hopefully. And these transfers are basically just water slide. These labels or transfers, decals, whatever you want to call them, come from Precision Labels, and if you look on the item, on the description, there is a link to a PDF which tells you where to order them from, and a link as well. Now the link will basically point you to this sheet. As you can see, this sheet will do, apart from the Normandy at the bottom, this sheet will do all 4 carriages, so Saloon, first, second and second brake. You'll have to find your own numbers from somewhere, because I haven't got the full 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and all that kind of numbers, so I've got 2 on 1 and 1 and 0, so not too many, but you've got the first, the second, guards, brake, and also the crests as well, and also the highlighted in pen are the end details of the coach, so the weight, the tear, the etc, width, all that kind of thing. So that's all good, and that's the whole sheet. So that'll probably cost you about £20–25, but the blue ones are translucent, so you must be careful when cutting them. Use a sharp pair of scissors or a very sharp knife. So you also get some instructions from Precision Labels themselves. I just want to say thanks to John for making this happen as well. So it's basically a water slide transfer. You cut them out, and then you let them soak for about 25–30 seconds, pull them out, and then slide them onto the body shell, or on this case the windows. We'll be doing it from the inside rather than the outside. I usually wait till the glue has dried on the windows for quite 24 hours or so, so we don't mess up the transfers. There are some spares on there, but just in case, but you do have to be careful. So clean the acetates and cut out your transfers, and on we go. Okay, transfer time. So you've got yourself a bowl, not a bowl, or a plate of water, and you cut your transfers out here. I just cut them out with a little bit of border, a cocktail stick just to put it in the right place, tweezers, and a sharp knife to cut it out with. These transfers are a bit odd because instead of mounting them as you do with normal ones facing that way, they seem to be better that side, so you need to face them down and then put them on the window that way round. So I've done the second class compartment already, as you can see inside there. They are a bit tricky to get in the right place. There you are. I've also put the crest in the middle, as this is number 10 anyway. So I'll put the saloon windows in and just show you. It is a bit tricky, but if you wet the inside of the window first, then it should easily slide off the brush, or transfer paper rather. So just put a little bit of water along there, not too much, so the glue doesn't come off the down window. So about 25–30 seconds, transfer should be ready to come out. There we go. and just turn that the other way. There we are. Just slide that in there. Luckily it's standing up, and I can just ease it along. There you go, transfer's already come off, so just need to slide the backing paper off, take that away, and that leaves the transfer free to work on. Now, not going to be easy to see, but if I gently push transfer where I want it, but the bigger they are, the easier it is. So okay, looks about right with the light on it. There we go. That looks just about in line and in the middle. I can sort of see the light reflecting through them, which is good. So that's where we need it. Let it dry out and then we'll put the next one on. So this is one I made earlier in true Blue Peter fashion. You can see all the compartment top lights are the stained glass. You can see the first, second on each door, and the number 10 you can see the lining on the waistband, and also a gold lining transfer around the bottom edge of the door. On the back you can see the writing transfer just down here. Very difficult to see on the transfer sheet, but he does put some biro around it just to help you out. And the same on the other side. Haven't put seats in this one yet, but I'll get around to it at some point. So yeah, you see second, first, second, and number 10, and the transfers, and the lining, which is a burnt red on the beading, and there you have it. So that's what one looks like painted up, and as I say, this is the early version with the individual step boards. So next we'll go on to the interior, which this one doesn't have, and I'll show you some of that. So next stage on the stage to finishing, as we're very close, is the furniture or the seating. Now if you've bought a first class carriage, which this one has a first class compartment, which is the centre, it will have seats with it. The second class ones are just bench seats, so just some plastic card strip, about 7 or 8 mil wide, cut quite thin, I think it's about 0.2, 0.3 of a mil, thick plastic card, cut into a strip and glued in position. They were just bench seats, nothing special. The one we have restored at the railway has sort of a vinyl fake leather top with some padding underneath just to make it a little bit more luxurious. So the first class ones, so the All First and the First / Saloon, will have these rather posh seats, and they are split into two sections to aid fitting into the compartment, because on prototyping the first lot I made, it was impossible to do it in one piece, so two pieces seem like the better option. So you'll have 4 for one compartment each. So the All First one will have 4, 12, 16 seats, or pieces of seats, and they'll be painted blue because it's first class, and then they'll be glued together. One side will go in first, and then the second part will go in second, then glue it together. On the inside you can see these little supports on the inside of the body shell. Now if I can do this, which I probably won't do very well, there you go, just pop it in there, up against the back, there we go. There we go, now sitting down. So it's now sitting on that ledge or support on the inside. That'll be painted and glued into place with some all-purpose glue. I do have some behind my hand, but it's holding this. This one will go in afterwards, and that can be lifted up and over the top, and there's little cutaway on this seat on the edge, which will just slot into the little peg on the other side. What I'll do is I'll glue a set in, and then you can see. So there we are. We have a completed prototype, and just to show what it will look like if it was painted, because we've been pretending all this time that it is. On the left is an earlier version of the 3 separate steps. So this is the early 1864 version, then the later 1800s when they had brakes and a single step board along under all the doors, which makes the chassis a bit easier. So that's the instructions for the Oldbury carriages. Hope this helps, and hope you have enjoyed it and find it informative, and hopefully if you're interested you may buy 1 or 2 or maybe the whole set, who knows. More information on Oldbury's you can find on the Isle of Wight Steam Railway website, or give them a visit. Restoring number 21 at the moment in the workshops at Haven Street, so come round and have a look. Thanks for watching, and see you again in the next video.